You put in all this time, all this effort, degrees, years, experience, and then you're like, ruh-roh, this is not filling me up anymore.
Welcome to the Legacy Branding Podcast. I'm your host, Laura Beauparlant, here to guide you through the journey of selling your business and building a personal brand that leaves a lasting impact. On the show, we'll explore real-life founder stories, expert insights, and actionable strategies to help you navigate the transition, avoid post-sale crisis, and create your impact-driven legacy brand. Whether you're thinking of selling, building to sell, or already on the other side, this podcast is your go-to resource for making your next evolution your best one yet. Let's dive in. Today on the Legacy Branding Podcast, I'm excited to welcome John Mollura, a personal coach, keynote speaker, and former literal rocket scientist. For 15 years, John led test operations for NASA and other elite-level missions before making a very bold pivot into becoming a multi-award-winning photographer with work featured in National Geographic. But despite an impressive resume, John was silently battling perfectionism, procrastination, and overwhelm, the very thing that keeps even the most accomplished entrepreneurs stuck. And a personal tragedy and a spiritual awakening became the turning point that led him to redefine success on his own terms. And now through his coaching and keynote elite level action, John helps high achievers break through hesitation and finally take the bold aligned action that transforms lives and legacies. John, welcome to the show.
It is a pleasure to be here, Laura. Thanks for having me.
I love your story. And I know when I first read that, I was like, ooh, we've got to have this conversation because I love that your career has spanned so many different areas. And for me, I know that working with founders, the biggest transitions aren't always selling their business. It's what comes next. And that feeling of now what, or realizing that what you've built, whether it's a career or a business, it doesn't actually fulfill you in the way that you thought that it might.
Right.
And yeah, and you've worn these impressive titles, NASA engineer, National Geographic photographer, and yet you still found yourself stuck and battling that perfectionism and self-doubt. I wanted to ask you, was there a specific moment that you realized that the path you were on, no matter how successful it looked from the outside, wasn't the right one for you anymore?
It was really a slow fade, Laura, but if we rewind to the beginning, I never took the time to really figure out what I wanted to do. And the reason why was I didn't really know who I was from all the trials, transitions, and tragedies that I experienced and traumas growing up in that process. I had just created this shell around myself where I really didn't even know who I was. I just went with whatever trusted advisor told me to do. Someone probably told me I should be in engineering because I did decent in math and science in high school. So I was like, all right, whatever. So I just kind of went trucking down that path. And it creates this just huge amount of dissonance and stress inside of you whenever you wake up to the fact, and it might be a very gradual process like it was for me, that holy cow, I'm not where I'm supposed to be. You feel like there are all these sunk costs that you've put into it. And you put in all this time, all this effort, degrees, years, experience. And then you're like, ruh-roh, this is not filling me up anymore.
So do you find that walking away from this identity cost you anything, either personally, professionally? And what did that make room for? Because I think whenever we kind of give up something, let go of something, even if it's hard, whether it's an identity or something else, it opens up room for other things. So I'd love to know the two sides to that coin.
Sure. So when I walked away from corporate engineering in the aerospace field a little bit over 8 years ago, I walked away from six-figure salary, from being flown around the world first class to go rep the company at very important meetings with international clients. So that's what I walked away from. It took a lot of time to kind of decouple who I was from what I did, because a lot of times it's so easy to put your identity in what you did and what you earned. I will be very straightforward. There were a lot of sacrifices, not only me, but also my wife and kids had to make. We watched friends and everybody on Instagram going to Europe and jet skiing in the Caribbean. And my kids were like, why can't we do that? So I'm building this business. But they're young. They don't understand it. It was worth it to me in the long run because by the time I got to the end of my engineering career, and I was like 16 years into it, like a watershed moment was when my wife said, she's like, "Are you doing okay?" And I was not okay. She said, "No," of course I'm like, "Yeah, what do you mean? Why?" She goes, "Because your skin kind of has the color of a wet ashtray." Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Like
quite the
just kind
visual.
of, yeah, not good. Like you get the visual. And it was just because I was so out of alignment. After she said that, it really got me thinking. And I remember walking in one day, and the weather is very similar to kind of what it is today. Like we were talking about, you're in Canada, on the coast of the US. It's like we're in the same weather system. It's gross outside. It's like cold. It's rainy. And I was walking into work one day, and it was just raining down the back of my jacket. And a pivotal moment for me was after my wife and I had that conversation. I said, "Thank God I'm getting paid so much money to be so miserable." Yeah. I don't even remember walking to my desk. Yes. Thank God I'm getting paid so much to be so miserable. It was like in the war movies when like a bomb goes off and like the ears are just ringing. That's how I felt. Like it physically manifested where like I didn't remember walking to my desk, and I sat down. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? Is this the example I want to set for my young kids?
Wow. I need to sit with that one for a minute. When I talk with so many founders and so many entrepreneurs or people in a career, corporate career, doesn't matter. Our identity is so often tied to what we do for a living. It's usually the first question people ask, what do you do? Not who are you? And I wonder how different our lives would be or how much earlier we might shift going into the thing that we're really meant to do if people asked us, who are you?
Yeah.
Not what do you do?
Right. A great question to kind of open that up, because a lot of times if you just ask someone like, who are you? Like when I work with people one on one of the first questions I always ask is, if we were to talk like a year from now, and like you could finally have the momentum towards what you really want, like what is it you really want to have that momentum towards? And people just go like, we don't think about it. It's like we don't give
Yeah.
ourselves permission. We think dreaming is relegated to the youth, like children, or like maybe someone like going to college, like getting ready to graduate high school. And then after that, it's now it's time to do some adulting, and like the dreaming stops.
The dreams must die now that you are an adult.
That's right. A lot of it is just becoming aware now, like where we want to go. And like I always say, like, what are decisions you can make in the moment to be a hero to the future you? Because that's what we're really doing to build a legacy. Is we're making decisions in the moment to be a hero to the future you.
But you have to know who that is that you want to
Right.
be.
So you got to sit with that. That's exactly why it's the first question I ask people when I work with them one on one. And then we're able to step through that, and I'm able to guide them through that process of really figuring out what I like to call like their North Star,
Yeah.
because that's what you can refer back to when you're in these moments of, do I really want to do this? And the answer is probably going to be no, whatever the hard thing is in front of you. But if you change it and say, is doing this going to help me be a hero to this future you? That's a much more powerful thing. But like you said, we have to figure that out.
And it makes me think too what you said earlier about the fact that you invest all of this maybe time, money into a career. You feel like you've gone down this path so far that I think a lot of people think, I can't stop now. I can't shift gears. What will people think? Or I've already invested all of this. I can't start over. But yet we're often, whether we're pushed into a career or we have to make a decision in high school, like, what do you want to study at 17 or 18 years old? What do you want to do for the rest of your life? And in some ways, I think we're beyond that point where people do one thing
Right.
for their whole lives. I think people are going to have many diverse careers. Even photography, like people might think, oh, engineering and aerospace and photography, there's a lot of science in photography.
Yeah.
And there's an art to it, but there's also art and science. They're not that far different than you might imagine. So it is interesting how we feel like, oh, I've gone this far, I have to continue. But really, is that, if you were to get to the end of your life and look back, what decisions would you have maybe regretted not doing or not making?
Yeah. Yeah. I never want to say it could have been me. That's one of my favorite songs. And that's what I listen to for inspirations, by a youth band from the UK called the Struts. And I've had the privilege to photograph them a couple times when they've been in the US. But they have this song called It Could Have Been Me. And that's exactly what the song talks about. I never want to say that. I never want to say it could have been me. Like I would rather go down in a blaze of glory than be sitting on a rocking chair somewhere at the end of my days being like, I think I probably could have been a photographer. I think I probably could have been able to pay the mortgage doing that.
And now you can say, that was me.
Yeah,
Or that
exactly.
is me.
Yeah. And there's something you said a couple minutes ago that I really want to rewind to, especially since I know you work with founders in transition. And you said, what will people think? How could I start over? And I always challenge people. I'm like, you're not ever starting over. The only time you're starting with zero knowledge is like the moment you're born. After that point, after the moment you are born, now life is just a beautiful dance of learning and then figuring out how to repackage all of these experiences, all of these skills that are unique to you in your life. Like, how are we going to repackage this? So you don't start over. I say, look for these golden threads that go throughout your life.
Yeah.
That's where the magic happens, is figuring out how just to reframe this stuff and continue to learn and then repackage it and reapply it in a different way.
Absolutely. And I love that reframe. And I think that's probably a narrative that plays out. But if we can reframe it, that it isn't starting over, it's maybe something's fresh, but you've got all of this knowledge and background that you can bring forward into whatever you do next.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I was in engineering in the space program, I did test operations. So they would drop us off anywhere on the planet, like Antarctica to jungles to the deserts. And our job was to figure out and make sure that whatever we were doing for the military or for NASA was going to work before we launched it or put it on an aircrew member. I had to become very adept as the leader of a lot of these tests of establishing rapport like that, because you can imagine the amount of red tape that is present at a federal facility. Doesn't matter what country you're in.
Yeah.
I had to really hone that skill of establishing rapport quickly with people and thinking on my feet, because that would enable us to get the tests off. A lot of times it was personal relationships we would create. Well, guess what photography is? Establishing rapport and relationships, being able to read people and figure out the way the messages land with them. The engineering, my job again was testing. So like we had to figure out, how are we going to satisfy these requirements that the government would give us, these 300-page tomes of you shall do this, it shall not do this. Well, our job was to figure out that we met every one. Guess what happened when I went into the corporate or commercial photography realm? I was working with Fortune 500 companies who needed like their website done like now. I was able to leverage that skill of being able to synthesize and read through requirements and be like, is this exactly what you need? Is this going to check all the boxes? So I could be very efficient and provide the art, but leverage that discipline. Guess what? As a coach, I have to be able to establish rapport quickly. I have to be able to synthesize information and figure out what the root cause of things are. It might seem like totally all these things are way apart, but it's just a matter of synthesizing and figuring out, again, those golden threads that we can use to not only serve ourselves, but then how to serve others.
Absolutely. And it's similar work, but in a different vein that we do. I help find that common thread that we can build a brand around. And all of those nuances that you just said, it's, oh, this is who you are. This is what you can do and take forward into whatever career or business you build. But it's finding those things, those threads that link and are you and unique to you. And we all have them, but we're usually too close to ourselves to be able to even see it.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I'm working one-on-one with a client, and I'll say something and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I didn't see that. I'm like, all right, time out. Remember what we talked about was switching from being judgmental about ourselves? Let's be curious and realize that you are in the middle of it. You're in the middle of the fight. You're in the middle of the woods. You're in the forest. I'm floating around as your coach, detached in the helicopter going, hey man, turn left. And that's why coaching and bringing outside advisors like you in is so important, to give that just perspective.
Hey founders, quick shameless plug for the sponsor of this podcast and my company, Lab Creative, where we help ambitious founders untangle their personal brand from their business so they can position the company to sell and build a personal brand for their next evolution. If that sounds like you, head to labcreative.ca to check out our work and to book a call with me. Or if you want to just dip your toe in first, grab a copy of the Founders Brand Playbook. It's our free step-by-step guide to building a brand that attracts premium buyers and creates opportunities for you post-sale. You can download it at labcreative.ca/playbook. So I want to go back to that moment in your office when you walked in and you said to yourself, I'm so glad that I'm getting paid so much money for something that makes me miserable. What was the sequence of events that followed that? And how soon after that did the photography and leaving that job become a thing?
To really rewind and give people a very good view of how my journey went, and you touched on this in my intro, about 7 years into my job, I lost one of my best friends to an intentional overdose. And I was already on shaky emotional ground pretty much for most of my life, like really wrestled with anxiety, probably even borderline depression, and had tremendously low self confidence. Like, I remember standing on the stage getting a letter of commendation from the US military, which was a big deal, especially as a civilian. I remember when my name got ready to be called, I had a panic attack. And I thought they're going to realize I've been faking it and have just pulled the wool over everybody's eyes. And they're going to tell me I don't really deserve this. Meanwhile, the thing that we did, that the team and I had been working on for years, was out doing what it's needed to do, and is actually still out there doing its thing today. But I didn't believe it because I just had this just intense lack of self-confidence. I didn't believe the good things people told me, despite a track record of like successes and being able to figure it out in life and in business. I thought I was just one mistake away from it all crashing down at all times. I felt like I'd built this house of cards. So how did I defend it? I would, of course, strive even more, raise my hand for the most difficult assignments. Oh, potentially hazardous. Oh yeah, put me in, coach, right? Because I was trying to generate this self-worth. The time crunched projects, the hazardous operations, none of it made me feel good. In fact, it just put me higher up on this pedestal that I thought, oh my gosh, what if I fall now? So I had this just veneer of like superhero that I had created, but didn't believe it. So I would defend it by pretty much just being an a-hole. I don't know what your language policy is, but everybody gets the impression. I got a lot of other adjectives I could use to describe myself during that time in my life because it was fear-based. And after we lost my friend in 2009, it put me in an extremely dark place, Laura, to the point where I was like, I don't know if I really want to go on. I don't know how to get out of this. Like, I was a new dad. I had a lot of fear around being a good father. And I thought maybe my buddy was right. And in that moment, for whatever reason, I realize now it was the grace of God, the serenity prayer popped in my head. And I hadn't prayed for a decade and a half. One, nothing to do with religion after graduating Catholic high school. After I said the serenity prayer, I've like immediately, and I said the wisdom to know the difference, I felt this warm sensation come over me. And I thought, that's odd. My highly logical engineer brain kicked in. It's like, that's weird. And I thought, I've either A, just lost my mind, or B, maybe there's something to this God thing. And that was the moment I was so broken that my faith was restored in Jesus. And it wasn't all rainbows and unicorns, because the first thing that happened was the proverbial scales fell from my eyes, and I was able to see what a jerk I was. So I started keeping track of when I would lose my temper, when I'd be triggered, when I would cut people down, use that intense ability to read people I talked about. I used to be like Darth Vader with the Force. I used to use it for evil to protect myself.
Right.
So I started just figuring out, then getting a handle on myself, like learning to breathe before I would say something. And that started this journey of really becoming back towards myself. Meanwhile, the company I worked for was taken over by venture capitalists. And it went from this tight family run business for the past 50 years in the US space and defense program to now became about profit, which nothing wrong with money, but the stuff I did, we were very expensive because sometimes we would test something and a lot of times it would not work. So it would, as I would write up in the report, sometimes energetically disassemble, AKA blow up, and turn into confetti. And we'd spend the rest of the day cleaning things up.
Yeah, that eats into some profits, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that is not good for profits when your thing explodes right before you give it to, you're supposed to give it to your customers. But would you rather have it happen there or on Mars?
Yeah.
So where I worked changed dramatically. I was changing dramatically. So over the course of years, I just became very discontent with where I was at. I was like, this is not right with my soul. Photography had always been a side hustle. or a hobby. Then it became a side hustle. I thought, wouldn't that be cool to be a photographer? I had a brave delay kick in. I thought, how could I now at this time, being a father of three, do photography full time? I'm the primary breadwinner, blah, 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 all the things that made me seem very brave, but were really just delaying what I wanted to do. So I left that engineering job and took another engineering job where I got paid even more money. And that's one where I realized how miserable I was. I lasted 9 months at that second job. And my wife and I had a lot of discussions. Once I was able to figure out how to get in with businesses and network and leverage some professional societies in our area, that's when we prayerfully made the decision for me to step away from engineering. Because she said, look, the worst that's going to happen is you could always get another workaday job and go back to engineering, right? Don't go out of the parking lot doing donuts with your middle finger out of the air. Leave on good terms, John.
Please don't burn any bridges.
So that was, like I said, I just celebrated my 8th year just being entrepreneur in April.
Amazing. What a journey.
It was a very slow fade. It was a falling of the scales from my eyes. It was discontent with where I was at, and then going somewhere else where I thought the grass would certainly be greener on the other side. And then I realized I just need to start watering the lawn where I'm standing instead of thinking what's going to be better.
That's a beautiful analogy.
Thank you.
I think a lot of times we think something will be better somewhere else. But imagine if we did nurture or water where we are, what that could be like. And that can be everything from a business, a career, a marriage, as a parent, the home you live in, relationships. You have to nurture all of these things so they can grow. Otherwise,
It takes effort.
it takes effort. All of these things do. Oh my gosh, I love that. I know it's hard. If you look back, I know those were not easy times, but I also believe that the growth comes from the challenges, from the discomfort. And often we have to hit those moments in order for us to change something.
Yeah.
I often say that the universe or God or whatever people believe in is going to tap lightly on your shoulder and say, hey, maybe this is not the path for you. I said, and if you don't listen, it'll eventually come in with a sledgehammer.
Yeah. I call them 2x4 moments. Sometimes God needs to get my attention with a 2x4 right between the eyes. I didn't pay attention to the rock in my shoe. So
Yeah. Do you feel like now you're better at identifying the taps as opposed to waiting for the 2x4 moments?
oh man, I'd love to say yes, but it's definitely not. I'm better. As always, I'm a work in progress. That's why it's so important to just involve mentors in your life or coaches, people that have walked that path and can be a guide for you. I was talking with one of my mentors, Ken Roberts, and I said, man, I just don't understand why like the photography business is drying up and not getting traction. You look at the resume, like I was featured by National Geographic Your Shot. I've done Fortune 500, like all the things. And Ken's real wise, and he kind of puts his glasses up on his head and he steeples his fingers. He goes, oh, you're experiencing spiritual pullback. I went, huh? So what do you mean? He said, obviously you weren't paying attention that you needed to start shifting things. So God just pulled the handle back on one faucet and it's drying up, right? I'm like, yeah. He's like, pay attention to where things are flowing from now. So every time I feel like things are drying up, that's a very vivid analogy that Ken graciously shared with me.
Yeah, that is so true. And we don't often see those clues or listen to them. We just continue as you did too. Like you just push harder, go for the hazardous job, you do more, hoping that it will fill maybe that void or that lack of fulfillment. But it actually takes doing that deep inner work.
Right. I know it sounds scary, and I do a lot of work with the first responder and military special forces community. That might sound terrifying to get in and do that work. And these are people that are being shot at. Like if you want to excel at what you're doing and you want to be able to do it long term, and this doesn't matter if you're first responder, military, or you own a bakery, like it doesn't matter. There's only so much you can do. But when you do this deep work and you start to shift out of autopilot and become aware of things and are able then to shift out of being judgmental and be curious about stuff, then you can be a true seeker towards your North Star. And you're not only serving yourself, but now you're able to serve everybody else around you from a place of abundance instead of being like the reservoir that's supposed to be supplying the fresh water, but there's holes all over the front of the reservoir and it's leaked out. And now it's just the muddy dregs coming out the bottom. Like, that's not where you want to be.
That doesn't serve anybody, you or anybody else.
Right. Absolutely.
And I think that's such a beautiful lesson for the people listening. You can't give from an empty cup, can't give from an empty reservoir. And doing that work, it is work. It does require time and effort. But the clearer you get on who you are, not what you do,
Right.
how you want to have that impact, that North Star, that impact that you want to create, the legacy you want to create, the more in alignment you can get with your career, your business, the relationships you have in life.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's all about alignment and learning to become honest with yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So the podcast is called Legacy Branding. What does legacy mean to you? I'd love to know your perspective.
Yeah. The way I look at legacy, and that's actually legacy is one of the pivot points or the leverage points that I talk about in my content, because it's so powerful to look at, all right, what choice can I make today to have you be the hero to the future you? So that's what legacy means to me, is like taking the time, figure out who that future you is you want to be, how you show up in your relationships, how you show up in your job, how you show up in your learning, your self-care, your finances, like all the things. Who's that future you? Spend some time figuring that out. And then the beautiful part about that is it's not just some nebulous thing out there. Now, when it comes time to make a decision in the present moment, because that's when we actually create this reality for the future version of ourselves, is now you ask the question, instead of saying, do I want to do the thing? Did I want to wake up this morning at 4:30 and go work out with my men's group in the cold and rain? No, I did not. But I know that, like, I'm getting close to 50. I know I want to be able to be mobile. I want to be agile. I still want to be able to travel, walk around, play with grandkids, or even a dog in 20 years. So I want to serve that. I want to be a hero to that future version of myself. So legacy to me means take the time, figure out who you want to be in all aspects of your life. And if you don't know, that's okay. At least start thinking about it. And then when the tough decisions come about in the moment, don't say, do I or don't I want to do this? Say, is this action or inaction going to cause me to be a hero to the future version of myself? Or is this decision going to keep me stuck?
I love that. And this is why you and I are so aligned, because I've asked people that same question, and I'd say it in a slightly different context is, does this action, opportunity, new offering in your business, whatever that might be, does it get you closer to your goals, to the impact you want to have, or does it get you further away or keep you stuck, as you said? And then the decision becomes easy.
Super easy. Yeah. It's binary at that point. It's a yes or no. Like the gray disappears from those decisions.
And I think we often underestimate the importance of listening to our gut. What is that first initial response? And if it is a yes, then explore that. But if it's no, but you're like, I feel like I should, that's also a problem, right? The shoulds.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't should all over yourself.
Exactly. John, this has been amazing. Thank you so much. I'd love for you to share a little bit about how you work with people, how people can connect with you, follow you, and we'll make sure to share any links in the show notes, but please share.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. So I can be found at johnmollura.com. It's Mollura. And I have free resources where I talk about the 6 leverage points. We talked about one of them today, legacy. The other ones I talk about in that are confidence, how to take action. Once you get action, how to maintain that momentum. And then once you get the momentum going, like, how do you stay focused and not look at what everyone else is doing? And then finally, the 6th leverage point is how to create boundaries around your energy with communication skills that I sorely lacked through the first part of my life. So that can be found at johnmollura.com, free stuff. You can download my elite level action playbook, which outlines all of these leverage points, which is first and foremost is legacy is in there, which is why you and I connected so much. And what it looks like to work with me, I do group webinars on all of my leverage points. And then I also do one-on-one coaching where we really get to deep dive and dig into what's going on. And I always say, I don't even like to use the term coach. A lot of times I'm like, I'm a guide. And guides are folks that have been up to the mountaintop and then have come back down for someone else to help them safely on their journey. So that's what I like to work with people as a guide.
Amazing. And you're a beautiful gift to the world and to the clients that have the privilege of working with you. Thank you again so much for being here, John. Thanks for tuning into the Legacy Branding Podcast. I hope today's episode has inspired and empowered you on your journey to building a brand that truly matters. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other founders who you think would benefit from listening. And if you're ready to take the next step in building your legacy brand, visit our website, labcreative.ca, to learn more and book a call. Don't forget to join us next time for more conversations that will help you navigate your transition and create your legacy. Until then, I'm Laura Beauparlant.